right. Hi, fourth grade.
Hi. Hi out there.
So now that we have read Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes, I'm going to show you how to actually make an origami crane. This is one of the first things that I learned to make in origami, which is a Japanese paper folding art form. And it's a little bit tricky to make, but I know that you guys can do it. And just like in the book, she had to practice a few times before she got really good at it. It's the same as anything. Practice makes perfect. So don't worry if you don't get it great the first time. Just keep practicing. So I happen to have some origami paper here in the art room, which was what I used to make this. Origami paper, it's perfectly cut into a square, which is what you need. You don't want to start with any sort of rectangular piece of paper. You need a square. But you don't need origami paper to make origami. Just like in the book, she doesn't have pre-cut origami paper. People just bring her different scraps of paper and she cuts it into a square, and then she's able to begin. So I'm going to show you how to cut a regular piece of printer paper into a perfect square, and then you'll have a square sheet of paper to make your crane with. So what you want to do is you start with a piece of paper, and what's really important with origami is precision of your folds. So pay special attention to your corners. So what we're going to do is we're just going to fold up one corner here, and you're going to focus on the corner that you're folding. You want to get this side of the paper lined up with this side of the paper perfectly, and then try to get a perfect corner fold right there. And then put it back down on your table, line up these edges again, and using one hand to hold it down like this and the other hand to make your fold, just create a fold like that. So it was, again, just folding up one corner. Now, this is the part that you want to cut off. So you can just cut straight along this line. And we're going to get rid of this little rectangle on the end here. And now we have a perfectly square piece of paper to create our origami crane with. So it's really as easy as that. If you have a rectangular piece of paper, fold up the corner, trim off the end, and you have a square. I am going to use this piece of origami paper to show you how to fold, only because it's one color blue on one side and a different color white on the other side, and it makes it a little bit easier for you to see what I'm doing. But you can use this paper, this is perfectly fine, or any paper that you have to make origami. I will say you don't want anything too thick. You don't want like a construction paper or a cardstock. It's just, you can do it, but it makes it a little bit harder. So thin printer paper is something that you all probably have at home, or even notebook paper. As long as you start with something that has straight edges, you can make a square. But without further ado, let's make our crane. All right, the first fold that you want to make is just to fold it in half like a triangle. And if you cut your paper out like this, you already have that fold. So line up your corners as well as you can. Take your time. This is not something that you want to rush through, because again, it is all about precision. You want to have these nice corners that aren't janky like that. Okay? So you fold it in half that way once to make a triangle. Now you want to fold it in half again to make another triangle. Again, lining up your corners as neatly as possible. Holding that down with one hand and pressing down to create this seam with your other. So now you have a piece of paper that has been folded in half once to make a big triangle, and again to make a slightly smaller triangle. Okay, the next step is to put this flat on the table in front of you like this, leave one side on the table, and bring this side up, and then you want to sort of put your finger in here to open it up all the way to the corner, and line this up down at the bottom so that this line matches up with this line and this corner with this corner. And then fold like that. Okay, so if I'd gotten that totally perfect, you wouldn't see any white here. It would just be a perfect square. But it's been a while since I've done this, so mine isn't going to be perfect. And if this is your first time, yours isn't going to be perfect either. Don't worry. Okay, so now you have this. Flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Opening it up, folding it down. And creating those folds right here. Okay, so quickly, a recap of what we've done so far. We've folded it. Let's see. We folded it in half to make a large triangle, folded it in half again to make a slightly smaller triangle, pick up one side, put your finger in there to open it out, fold that down to make a square, flip it over, do the same thing on the other side, and now we have a square. Okay, now this next step is the hardest part. So just take your time and try to do this correctly. What you want to do is you want to open up one side. So keep it flat on the table. Open up just one square that you've made. And you want to fold in these sides to meet this center line right here. So it's a little bit tricky because you can't open it up all the way. You're folding in to meet that center line. Okay, and then you do the same thing with the top here. Fold that in to meet the center line. So then it looks like this. You do the same thing on this side. Fold this in to meet your center line. And try to make sure that all of your corners are clean. Same thing up top. And then just fold it down, and you'll end up with this sort of a kite shape on the top. So, see? And I didn't fold it in all the way. You want this edge to meet your center line. So I'm gonna, even though I've folded it already, I'm gonna try to clean it up a little. Fold it in all the way, sort of scooch it in there. To meet that center line. Okay. Now that's better, because when I fold it open, you see very little of the white underneath because my edges have come in all the way to that center line. So now flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. So again, that was opening this up, folding in this outer corner to meet that center line. folding that in to meet the center line. Okay, and now this side matches up with this side. That's what I want. I want everything to be very uniform and even. And then again, one more side to do, opening this out and folding this in. Ooh. It is tricky. All the way in. And then pressing that down and creasing right there. Okay, so now it's this sort of kite shape all around. And when you fold this up, so again, that's not perfect, but it's okay. Open it up, and you end up with a diamond shape with this inside. You see that? Okay, so now that you have your kite and you've folded it up so that it's flat on the table like this, what you want to do is, having this part up top, we are going to fold this bottom part. So the parts that come out like this, these are the ones that we're going to fold. So you want to have this part at the top, and then down at the bottom where these come apart, fold this edge in to meet that inner edge and get a nice crisp fold like that. So again, it's taking this side of this part that separates, take this side, fold it in so that this edge lines up with this edge right there. There you go. Then flip it over and do the same thing on this side. Fold this edge in to meet this edge. And the last side to do. Okay, so now you have something that looks like this. And we're about to do just the final step here, which is to open it up like this and fold this part up. And then close it back in on itself. Do the same on the other side. Open this out, fold this up all the way, and then fold it back together. And then you can take one side, fold it down in the center. We're creating the head here. So this is the head of our crane, this is the tail, these are the wings, and then you can gently pull the wings open, and you have your crane. So hopefully that made sense. You'll probably have to rewind and watch these steps a few times. And my crane isn't perfect. If it was, this would be perfectly folded to a nice crisp point right there. You wouldn't see any of that white, but that is basically how it works. So I'm going to do it a couple more times with this paper, and I'll just speed it up, but you can watch and rewatch as many times as you need to figure out how to do this. So I'm going to do it with my regular printer paper this time. And this is going to be slightly easier than doing it with this because the paper is a little bit larger. The larger the paper, the easier it is, unless you're dealing with a huge piece of paper, and then that's no longer easy. But you get my drift. Okay, so I'm going to put on some music, and I'm going to fold a few more cranes, and feel free to follow along.